Hello everyone and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham and we're coming to you from our studios here in Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the U.S. and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, here's a look at the latest global headlines. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio pushes back against criticism from some American allies over the legality of U.S. strikes in the Caribbean, saying European nations have no right to dictate how Washington defends its national security. Bangladesh's chief prosecutor says the country will deliver the verdict in the crimes against humanity trial of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on November 17th. Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. vows that those allegedly involved in the country's corruption scandal tied to government infrastructure projects will be jailed by the end of this year. Britain's economy slows between July and September, dealing another setback to Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Labour Party just weeks before a crucial budget announcement on November 26th. And Nintendo releases the trailer for the highly anticipated sequel to its blockbuster Super Mario movie based on the video game maker's iconic franchise, which celebrates its 40th anniversary this year. We begin right here in Washington, and as the United States government finally reopens after the longest shutdown in its history, lasting more than 42 days, the work stoppage, which crippled federal operations, strained millions of Americans, and disrupted key services, came to an end late Wednesday night after the House of Representatives approved a short-term spending bill negotiated between Republicans and a small group of moderate Democratic senators. President Donald Trump signed the legislation into law shortly after its passage, allowing government functions to resume and ending a standoff that had stretched on for more than 6 weeks.
My signature, the federal government will now resume normal operations, and my administration and our partners in Congress will continue our work to lower the cost of living, restore public safety, grow our economy, and make America affordable again.
During the signing ceremony, the president repeatedly cast blame for the shutdown on Democrats.
Past 7 weeks, the Democrats' shutdown has inflicted massive harm. They caused 20,000 flights to be canceled or delayed. They departed so many times, so late. People were hurt so badly. Nobody's ever seen anything like this one. This was a no-brainer. This was an easy extension. But they didn't want to do it the easy way. They had to do it the hard way.
The newly signed law will keep the government funded only through January 30th, but doesn't permanently resolve the underlying disputes that caused the shutdown. The agreement ensures that a wide range of government services, however, will now restart. This includes the Food Assistance Program, or SNAP benefits, the release of economic reports that have been delayed during the shutdown, and the reopening of public attractions such as national parks and museums that have been closed for more than a month. It also guarantees that federal workers will, in fact, be paid for the first time since the shutdown began. Now, beyond reopening the government, the package provides full-year funding for the Departments of Agriculture, along with money for military construction and legislative agencies. The Federal Aviation Administration is also expected to restore normal operations in the coming days after severe staff shortages, which have led to widespread air travel disruptions. The shutdown was triggered by a funding impasse in Congress as Democrats demanded that the final bill include an extension of health care insurance subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. Republicans, however, argued that the issue of health care could be debated later and should not hold up the government from reopening. Now, on Sunday, a group of 8 moderate Democratic senators broke from their party and voted with Republicans to pass the bill in exchange for a promise that a vote on the health care subsidies will in fact take place in December. That compromise ended the shutdown, but it also triggered anger throughout the Democratic Party. The compromise provides temporary relief and avoids further disruption to daily life, and it does set up, however, another potential showdown very soon. For now, the immediate crisis has passed, and Americans can expect normal government services to resume in the coming days. But with the next funding deadline already on the horizon, Washington may only have bought itself a few weeks of peace before the same battle begins all over again. Washington has targeted Iran with a new wave of sanctions aimed at curbing its missile, drone, and nuclear ambitions. The U.S. Treasury Department announced the sanctions yesterday against 32 individuals and entities across 8 countries, including Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, China, Hong Kong, India, Germany, and Ukraine, accused of supporting Tehran's ballistic missile and drone production networks.
These networks pose a threat to U.S. and allied personnel in the Middle East and to commercial shipping in the Red Sea. As Iran seeks to reconstitute its proliferation-sensitive capabilities destroyed following the 12-day war, OFAC is acting to disrupt the procurement of key components, such as missile propellant precursors, and to prevent those assisting Iran from accessing the U.S. financial system.
The decision comes amid growing Western concerns over Iran's nuclear activities. The International Atomic Energy Agency said the quantity of highly enriched uranium Iran has produced remains a matter of serious concern. The watchdog urged Tehran to allow inspectors to verify inventories of previously declared nuclear material to rule out any diversion for non-civilian purposes.
We are inspecting in Iran, not at every site that we should be doing it, but we are gradually coming back. We are not inspecting the struck or the stricken sites, Natanz, Isfahan and Fordow, to be very, very clear. We are in discussion with Iran.
However, Western powers argue that there is no peaceful explanation for Iran's enriching uranium to such high levels. Now, according to the IAEA, Iran currently holds more than 440 kilograms of uranium, which is enough to make around 10 nuclear bombs. Tehran, however, insists its program is entirely for civilian use.
Last week, IAEA inspectors visited several nuclear sites, including Tehran Research Reactor. Due to the aggression by the Zionist regime and America, we are facing a special situation. The IAEA must understand this. The situation is not normal.
Now, amid the mounting pressure, the U.S. Treasury's top sanctions official has said that the time was right to hit Iran where it hurts most, its regional influence, particularly its financial support for Hezbollah.
At the direction of President Trump, we are putting maximum pressure on Iran to end its nuclear threat. The United States also expects the international community to fully implement UN snapback sanctions on Iran to cut off its access to the global financial system.
Now, Tehran's economy has been under severe strain since September, when talks to revive the 2015 nuclear deal collapsed and the United Nations reinstated sanctions. With inflation soaring and trade restricted, Iran has leaned on closer ties with Russia, China, and regional partners such as the UAE to offset its economic isolation. So even as sanctions tighten, Iran continues to project military strength. In fact, on Wednesday, it unveiled a new exhibition of missiles, drones, and radar systems in Tehran to mark its Aerospace Week. The display included the domestically produced ballistic missiles, advanced drones, and air defense technology.
We started it ourselves. When we were under sanctions, we couldn't even import barbed wire. We started making these missiles that you see here today. We design, manufacture, and use missiles that are essential in all areas of ground-to-ground warfare. You saw examples of these in the operations of the Honest Promise 1, 2, and 3.
As Washington doubled down on sanctions and Tehran displays defiance, the standoff appears far from over. And the next round of this ongoing conflict may test just how much economic pressure Iran can withstand before it pushes back. It was a diplomatic first and then a viral moment. President Donald Trump welcomed Syrian President Ahmad Al-Sharaa to the White House this week, marking the first visit by a Syrian leader since 1946. But amid serious talks came an unexpected icebreaker. President Trump handed Al-Sharaa a bottle of his victory perfume, sprayed it on him, and asked with a grin, how many wives? When Al-Sharaa replied, one, President Trump quipped, "You never know." Our next report brings you more on historic diplomacy with a scent of showmanship.
In a moment no one saw coming, the White House witnessed history and a spray of perfume this week. On Monday, President Donald Trump welcomed Syrian President Ahmed Al-Sharaa in Washington, marking the first ever visit by a Syrian leader since 1946. The meeting, long deemed impossible, was both politically symbolic and unmistakably Trumpian. And Trump, ever the showman, opened the meeting by presenting his guest with a bottle of Trump Victory 45-47, his own $249 cologne. Cameras caught the US president spritzing the fragrance on himself, then on Al-Sharaa, declaring, "It's the best fragrance." He smiled and handed another bottle over, adding, "That one's for your wife." Then came the quip that stole the headlines. "How many wives?" Trump asked with a grin. "One," replied Al-Sharaa. "You never know," Trump laughed, patting him on the arm as aides chuckled in the background. It was a light-hearted exchange between two leaders whose paths could not be more different. Al-Sharaa, once a wanted terrorist with a $10 million US bounty, now stood beside the man who removed him from that list. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours, and behind the laughter and perfume, serious business was discussed. Syria formally joined the US-led coalition against the Islamic State, becoming its 90th member. Washington also agreed to let Damascus reopen its embassy in the US, the first step in restoring formal ties after decades of hostility.
He's a very strong leader. He comes from a very tough place, and he's a tough guy. I liked him. I get along with him, the new president of Syria.
Al-Sharaa, meanwhile, came bearing gifts, replicas of ancient Syrian artifacts, which he said symbolized the first alphabet, the first seal, and the first musical note. He spoke about a new era for Syria, one focused on investment and reconstruction.
We talked about the president and the future. We talked about the investment opportunities in the future in Syria, and so that Syria is no longer looked at as a security threat. It is now looked at as a geopolitical ally.
Still, the move has sparked controversy. Hardline critics in Washington and online question Trump's embrace of a man with a violent past. Others see it as classic Trump diplomacy, unconventional, bold, and headline-driven. Years ago, Al-Sharaa sat in an Iraqi prison cell, and this week he sat in the Oval Office, shaking hands with the US president. As Trump's perfume lingered in the air of the White House, one question remained: was this the scent of a new Middle East, or just another fleeting fragrance of politics?
In Washington, with the shutdown over, the Epstein saga is now front and center. Newly released email suggests that President Donald Trump may have known more about the late sex offender's activities than previously admitted. Documents made public by the House Oversight Committee on Wednesday contain shocking exchanges between Epstein, his convicted accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, and others, painting a troubling picture of what may have happened behind closed doors. Among the most striking revelations is an email Epstein sent Maxwell back in 2011 where he wrote, quote, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump," end quote. He went on to say that one of the young women, later identified by Democrats as a victim, spent hours at his house with Donald Trump. In a reply, Maxwell said that she'd been thinking about that. The email also revealed that in 2015, when Trump was seeking the Republican nomination for the White House, journalist Michael Wolff wrote to Epstein,
"I hear CNN is planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in scrum afterwards.
If we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be?"
I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency.
And as recently as 2019, when Trump was in the White House, Epstein reportedly wrote to Wolff saying that Trump had asked him to resign from Mar-a-Lago, although according to Epstein, he was never a member of the president's exclusive club in Florida. In that same email, Epstein added that of course Trump knew about the girls and even claimed that Trump had once asked Maxwell to stop. The emails go beyond accusations. They show that Epstein's team continued tracking Trump's movements long after their relationship reportedly ended. In one message from November of 2016, Epstein's pilot informed him that Trump was scheduled to depart on a certain flight. The files also show Epstein's associates regularly forwarding news stories about Trump, suggesting the disgraced financier kept a close eye on his one-time friend. In fact, Epstein even mocked Trump in a message to former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, calling him borderline insane. And as the emails gain traction, Trump is coming under heavy fire. Democrats say the emails deepen the questions surrounding Trump's past association with Epstein and have demanded the release of the full Epstein files, believed to contain years of travel records and correspondence. Even worse, it's being reported that as many as 100 House Republicans could back legislation supporting full release of all the Epstein files, a move that the president himself does not support. House Speaker Mike Johnson is said to bring the legislation to the floor as early as next week for a vote. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt also defended President Trump.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep.
Meanwhile, President Trump continues to deny any involvement of Epstein's sexual abuse of underage girls and women. The president has fired back, accusing Democrats of trying to revive the Jeffrey Epstein hoax to distract from their failures on the government shutdown. However, the newly released emails say otherwise. And as the MAGA base gets a steady drip of the salacious details of Epstein's and Trump's alleged actions, it's anyone's guess how the White House contains this growing scandal. Move over iPhone upgrades. Apple's latest innovation isn't a gadget, it's a pocket. The tech giant has unveiled what it calls the iPhone Pocket, a limited edition carry solution designed to hold your phone and nothing else. Priced at over $200, the internet has quickly dubbed it everything from a luxury sock to a social experiment, while Apple insists it's a stylish collaboration with Japanese fashion. Critics, however, say it's proof that the company has officially run out of ideas. Here's a look at Apple's latest accessory that has everyone talking.
Apple has done it again, not by reinventing the smartphone, but by reinventing the pocket. One of the world's most valuable tech companies has unveiled the iPhone Pocket, a limited edition carry solution that's essentially a tiny bag for your phone. In a press release that could double as minimalist performance art, Apple described the iPhone Pocket as inspired by a piece of cloth. The company said the concept came from the idea of creating an additional pocket. To lend it some fashion credibility, Apple teamed up with Issey Miyake, the Japanese design house once linked to Steve Jobs' iconic black turtleneck. The collaboration resulted in an accessory available in a rainbow of colors: lemon, mandarin, purple, pink, peacock, sapphire, cinnamon, and black. It has 2 strap lengths, which are priced at $150 for the short strap and $230 for the long one. Apple insists it's a special edition release. The internet naturally lost it. Within minutes of the launch, social media was awash with disbelief, sarcasm, and plenty of memes. One user summed it up neatly, posting that this feels like a litmus test for people who'll buy and defend anything Apple makes. Another chimed in with a comment that at this point, Apple's just testing how far its fans will go to justify absolutely anything. Some users refused to believe it was real at all, calling it an April Fool's joke. Others went straight for the visuals by commenting that it is literally a cut-up sock with a strap. Meanwhile, loyalists invoked the company's late co-founder, declaring Steve Jobs would have never approved this. And of course, no Apple launch is complete without a jab at the price tag. It hasn't been a smooth season for Apple's design team. The company was only just recovering from the iPhone 17 Pro backlash after users reported their brand new phones were scuffing straight out of the box. Some even noticed perfect circular marks left behind by Apple's own MagSafe charger, a case of self-sabotage if there ever was one. Then came the cosmic orange catastrophe. The much-hyped iPhone 17 Pro color, meant to be this year's showstopper, began mysteriously turning pink. Social media exploded with photos of discolored devices. And now, just as the memes about the blushing iPhone were fading, along came the $200 Pocket to keep the ridicule alive. Of course, Apple's ability to make the absurd seem aspirational is part of its brand magic. This is, after all, the company that once sold a $19 polishing cloth and sold out. To many loyalists, the iPhone Pocket isn't ridiculous, it's a collectible. Whether the iPhone Pocket becomes the next viral flex or a museum piece of tech absurdity remains to be seen. But one thing's certain, Apple has once again mastered the art of making people talk, tweet, and argue over something no one actually needs. Maybe that's the real innovation. After all, in a world where your phone already costs as much as rent, it should only make sense that your pocket should too.
That's all we have time for today. We certainly thank all of you for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks everyone for watching.